Welcome back to the channel, folks. My name's Wayne. We are in Almeria in Spain, celebrating 30 years of Duke with KTM. A bit of a taste test of 3 different bikes here over the last couple of days. Pretty remarkable, actually, that you have a manufacturer that is introducing 3 pretty much all new motorcycles in the one lineup at the same time. So the 390 that you see far down on the right hand side is about a 90% new motorcycle over the previous model. New engine, new frame, new swing arm. The shock's been moved to the right hand side of the frame. Lots and lots of stuff going on there. And this one has a lot more tech to it, to the older models as well. In Australia, we kind of forget that there's a lot of markets in the world where the 390 is the largest capacity motorcycle that KTM sell, whereas in Australia it's one of the smaller ones. But that's now a premium motorcycle. It feels a lot bigger. It feels a lot more grown up than the previous model. So here we are in Almeria for the launch, the launch of the 390 Duke, the 990 and the 1390 Superduke. But today we are on the littlest one, which is 90% new. New engine, new frame, new bodywork. It's yeah, it's a very much revised thing. It feels and looks like a more premium bike than the outgoing model. And we are just heading off. Mirrors are a little bit vibey, they're a bit useless, but that's alright. Let's go over here. Feels nice and agile. We've just seen a bit of stunt action. Oh yeah, very agile. Yeah, typical KTM, you got to get up it to have some fun, and it comes to life. Just sitting behind a little car up here while we're waiting to get around. Let's talk about some of the new things on the new 390. Pretty much all new engine, designed to be a whole lot lighter. Completely new frame. It is noticeably stiffer than the outgoing one, and the shock is now located to the right hand side. It is no longer centered within the frame. That of course means it has a new swing arm to mount the shock on that right hand side. New wheels front and back, save 4.3 kilos combined, which is massive. That is a massive change. While I just round this bloke up. That's 174, 170. Oh, bang, big bump. Soaked it up pretty well. What else? New frontal treatment, new plastics. It looks, visually, it looks a lot bigger than the outgoing model. It looks like a bigger bike. It definitely looks like it belongs now in the sort of, you know, the Superduke family. I always thought the old ones looked a little bit small. It's quite well proportioned, this one though. I think they've done it pretty well there. They've thrown a lot at this model. It's got a lot of goodies on it, electronics wise as well. Has the launch control available, it's got a quick shifter. The dash is obviously the same look as the rest of the Superduke lineup. New headlight treatment. It's not a bad thing. In terms of styling overall, I think they've done quite nicely. Good quality feel too, good quality finish. All of the changes that they've made, particularly chassis, swing arm, all of that sort of stuff, has been around agility, but also retaining stability at speed as well. Given that we topped out back there at, well, a lot for Aussie roads, 174 or 5 I think I got to. They seem to have worked. Those changes, definitely. It's not twitchy in the front. Very much feels like it'll fall on its side pretty quickly and easily though. There's no doubt there at all. So we'll see what it's like when we get up in there hills and really do some carving up. But good fun so far. As an overall package, it's nicely dialed in with a blend of comfort and performance. It'll make a great little commuter or first bike for sure, and yet still capable of supplying grins on the weekend. At 165 kilograms wet and full of fuel, it's super manageable, manoeuvring around at standstill too, which is going to be helpful for a lot of those riders starting out. The new engine loves a rev just like the outgoing one, but punches really hard from about 5,000 RPM up after clearing its throat a little. Down low isn't rough either, it really pulls nicely from standstill. It's just that once you get moving, it's really punching hard, putting out a peak power of 45 horsepower at 8,500 RPM. That peak torque arrives at 7,000 RPM, peak torque being 39 Newton meters. So it definitely performs better in the mid-range and up. Service intervals are up to 10,000 Ks and valves done at 20,000 to keep costs of ownership down. The new bike comes with a 15-litre tank that should see everyday riding ranges out to around 400 kilometres. Maybe not quite that much if you're laying the years back like we were on this ride. The quick shifter works nicely and seems to be a little slicker than the old box, especially so on the upshift. Overall, it's surprisingly comfortable and easy to ride. So at the end of the day, the little 390 had a lot of smiling riders saying how good the day was. It's plenty comfortable, usable around town, it's a hoot in the twisties, has an engine that begs to be ridden hard, is both agile and stable, and now has the visual presence of a proper Duke. Stepping up to the all-new 990. Well, I say all-new, it's 96% new, this one. Clean sheet in terms of the engine, frame, subframe. 96%, as I said, it's essentially an all-new bike. We got to ride this one this morning out on the road. We actually rode through some icy roads and snow up in the mountains here in the background, all around the track here. Really nicely balanced bike, good size. Feels really firm, but feels really composed and stable as well. They've worked on the stability on this one quite a lot compared to the old one. The agility hasn't gone away, which is great. I actually really like this engine, much more so than the older iterations. It's a little noisy up the top in the revs, but keep it down low and it punches really nicely. Super torquey, 123 horsepower. Yeah, good wheeling machine too. Love that one. So we're on the 990. Clearly it's a step up in power from the 390. It's a lot firmer. Gotta turn that wheelie control off. Got it set on high, but it's still keeping that front down. I don't know how grippy these tyres are. Find out. Pretty grippy. Up here. No wonder I'm cold. That explains why I'm not getting much feel from the tyres. Whoa, 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 whoa. That is literally ice. Well, we've just come down out of snow and icy roads. Certainly not what I expected in Spain, to be riding on icy roads, but there you go. So this 990 Duke is basically 96% all new, they tell me. New engine, frame, swing arm, subframe. Brakes are revised. I think they've saved, it was either 1 or 1.5 kilos just off the front. Discs and mounts. New bodywork, obviously, because it's very different. It has a whole swathe of electronics, as you would imagine, but it has all the track stuff that the 1390 also has, the Superduke, including telemetry, including launch control, obviously traction control, but it also now has wheelie control, so not just anti-wheelie, but you can dial in how much wheelie you actually want. Super torquey. That was third gear. Wasn't particularly fast. Still don't know if I'm trusting this road surface, to be honest, given that we've just come out of ice. Quick shifter is, yeah, is quite blunt. Good on the upshift, but she's pretty brutal on the downshift. Nice front brake. Plenty of power, plenty of feel.
The all-new LC8C engine punches out a very healthy 123 horsepower, but it's the 103 Newton meters that wins the day for me. The update focused on rideability, we're told, and on the road it was the bottom and mid-range that really delivered. I found it tailed off a little up top by comparison to that brunt available lower and mid in the rev range, pulling nicely pretty much right off idle, and once it's into about 3000 RPM it's fairly steaming. That engine, for what it's worth, is right in what I think is the sweet spot of that 120 to 140 horsepower range that's just so usable on the road for most riders. The new stiffer frame was also aimed at bringing in more stability. I found the 990 far more settled than the older 790 and 890 models that were almost too sharp for the road. The 990 turns like a breeze, but feels completely different in terms of being far more stable and planted over the old models. A new 1.5 kilo lighter swing arm has actually had its stiffness reduced in a bid to give more flex for bump absorption and stability in the rear. And between the added grunt and the refined stability, they've really transformed the bike from the outgoing model. While the ride up the hill was fairly tight with restricted sight lines, by the time we were coming down the other side I was feeling much more comfortable, particularly as the road opened up with fewer hairpins and more sweeping corners. The 990 comes with a ready-to-ride weight, which is wet with no fuel, of 179 kilos. Now by my math that equates to around 190 kilos fully fueled, which by modern standards, considering the amount of electronics and emission equipment that most modern bikes run, is actually pretty decent. The updated WP Apex suspension, which is fully adjustable at the front and adjustable for preload and rebound at the rear, seems an obvious step up. It's not harsh, it's quite nice on the road actually, with good feel and bump control. I'd need to spend more time on it to fully dial it in, but I reckon it'd handle track days for most people without a spring change in the front. We've got updated brakes in this version too, with twin 300mm discs up front and a single 240 out the rear. The calipers are carried over from the previous model, but the disc and mount setup have shaved another kilo off the front alone. And as we know, any reduction in rotating mass is always a big deal from a handling point of view, making change of direction so much easier. A new seat shape, tweaked a little from the previous model that was deemed a little too forward sloping by some customers. For me, it fit the bill well and was nice and comfortable after a solid half day on the bike. In terms of tech, the 990 gets full track mode as an option, just as the 1390 Superduke, which includes traction control, wheelie control, which lets you dial in just how much angle you want for maximum attack, as well as launch control. I love the fact that traction control is adjustable on the fly, with easy to use buttons on the left switch block. In fact, the buttons of the 990 was my favourite of the group.
Traction control.
In terms of range, the 990 tank holds 14.5 litres, which should be good enough for 300 kilometres if you're not going totally ballistic. And like all the other models, all surfaces are painted and the stickers are oversprayed for a premium finish. Price-wise, it comes in around 20 grand on the road, which just seems well priced. As with most other KTM models, you'll have to opt for a tech pack or two to get all of the electronic goodies, and more again if you want heated grips. Now, as a Melbourneite, heated grips are a must for me for year-round riding, and I would prefer that they come standard. All in all, the 990 marks a real growing up point from the 790 and 890 generation, in every aspect: styling, power and handling. I'm saying they've pretty much nailed this one, and it's my pick of the three that we tested over in Spain.
And of course, they've got the beast, the 1390 Superduke. This is 60% new compared to the previous version. Obviously, it's an increase in capacity. It's also an increase in torque and power. It's up to 145 Newton meters of torque. It's an absolute torque monster. We had these out on the track here earlier. Got a session and a half in the dry, and then it started sprinkling with rain, and we I took this opportunity to come in and talk to you guys a little bit about them. But man, this thing absolutely pulls like a train. Feels bigger, as you would imagine, than the 990, but yeah, lots of new stuff going on. Basically the same frame that's been carried over from the last one. Essentially, there's some changes to the airbox. That's about the only change to the frame to accommodate that airbox change. But yeah, super nice torquey engine. I love that old model on this one. I love this one too. Alrighty, here we are. We're on the big dog, the 1390 Superduke R. We are at Almeria Circuit in Spain. This is the first session. Very tight technical, well, not necessarily tight, but technical circuit, this one, with I think at least 3 blind corners, so we're going to be taking it steady and we'll get towed around for a little bit. Put my visor down. Yeah, it's definitely, and a bit higher too. Yeah, so we've just come off the 990 that we rode around this morning. I was just starting to get used to that bike, starting to get a bit of confidence on it, and then of course you got to jump on a different one again with these events. So we'll line up over here with all of the noobs that have not done this circuit before. is much more roomy than the 990, and the 990 wasn't bad in terms of room. And just remember that these are new tyres on this, so we'll just go easy. Oh, that's tight.
The most obvious update is the larger engine. Now these engine updates were aimed at Euro 5 compliance, but somehow they've also managed to bump up performance. Now did the old engine need more grunt? Well, probably not, but it's got it now. 190 horsepower is the headline stat, but KTM were more interested in pointing out that it still has a class-leading torque figure of 149 Newton meters, which is a massive amount of torque. The other big change in the engine is the addition of KTM's first camshift technology, which kicks things up another notch at about 6,000 RPM. It's a relatively smooth step up, it's not unsettling in any way, but you can notice it, probably more so actually on dropping down below 6,000 RPM from above.
Man, that's got some torque. No, not kidding.
Almeria is quite a technical circuit, lots of blind corners and tricky lines. The front half of the circuit is mostly rolling on and off the throttle, and then once you finally make your way down the back, there's a tight little chicane before you get to bring it round on the back straight and open it up. It's an animal acceleration wise. It should be no surprise really. It's almost 1.4 litres, but it's so civilised down low with that new camshift. How strong is it? Well, the front was coming up in third and fourth if you were really onto it. That wheelie control is probably there for a reason. And we were seeing 260 plus down the back straight, which is more than enough on a naked bike. Oh, and if those figures aren't enough for you, there's an acro system, a full system, that actually bumps up things an extra 10 horsepower and 5 Newton meters, rounding it off to a nice 200 horsepower and 150 Newton meters. Absolutely astonishing, for track use only. Unfortunately, we only managed a session and a few laps before light rain started falling. There was more swearing on my part, but for different reasons, because just as I was starting to get comfortable and push on, it was time to start buttoning off. However, even in that short time, there's no mistaking that this is arguably the most capable bike that KTM has ever produced. It's barking mad if you're in that mood, and with the new camshift it's even easier to ride than the old model. And I love it, just because of it. Maybe because it's so mad. The 1290 was probably my benchmark for big naked street bike animals like this on the road, and this one is just more everything. Handling wise, obviously it's noticeably heavier and firmer than the 990, but it's no slouch. Feels easy to flick from one side to the other, and actually feels quite tall. The bar seat peg ratio feels sporty without being race bike aggressive. The ergos for me are a standout actually, just as they were on the old bike. It's genuinely comfortable to punt around. Tech abounds. It gets all the track tech that the 990 does via optional packs, and then some more. And being the hero model, there are actually two variations available, the 1390R and the 1390 Evo. The Evo sporting Super Trick WP Gen 3 semi-active suspension at both ends, and running a bunch more tech in terms of suspension presets and custom setting maps. Now I didn't get a chance to start playing with all those suspension maps in earnest before that rain came down, but there are three main track presets that are set for standard, a little firmer and then a little softer to help you find your preferred setup. Jeremy suggested track 1 was the go for Almeria, and I have no reason to argue otherwise. The switchgear and dash controls step up a notch in complexity over the 990, especially when it comes to the semi-active suspension that's run on the Evo. There's no getting away from the fact that there's an incredible amount of adjustments that can be made, which does add to complexity. But that's probably the type of person who'd be buying the ultimate Superduke anyway. You could happily spend many hours fine-tuning the beast until it was just right for you. And that's exactly what the Superduke is. They've taken a bike we loved already and given it more of everything. It didn't need it, and logically it's probably way more than a lot of riders need. But who gives a toss? Because bikes like this aren't about what you need, they're about what you want. And the really impressive part about this bike is that it can be so barking mad, but it's so surprisingly easy to ride around without the need to go full send. Mind you, I do wonder how long I'd keep my license if I bought one, because I think I'd be wheeling everywhere.
That might be the last of the laps that we get without rain.
If I was going to choose one, it would probably be the 990. Out on the road today, as we were coming back down from the hills, I was really starting to gel with this bike. And I think for most people, 123 odd horsepower, it's about $20,000 Australian on the road, whereas we're talking 30 and above for the Superduke. It's grown up from the 790 and 890 models that were probably down on power for what most people might like on the road. Super torquey on the road. This is a really nice thing. I think they've done well here. But yeah, we're going to wrap it up here. Just a quick taste test of the 3 new Dukes. Big thanks to KTM for having us over here. 30 years of Duke bikes, and it's culminating in this great lineup that you see in front of it. But yeah, they've done pretty well here. I think this one, the 990 in particular, I think that's going to win a lot of friends.